Hi guys, today I'm going to talk a little bit about the narcissist and sociopath or psychopath's tendency in the beginning of the relationship, and sometimes for quite some time, of what they do, which is mirroring. You will see this if you were in a relationship with one of these psychological manipulators or personality disorder type individuals, or even just people that are sort of maybe not full-blown NPD, but they're highly narcissistic, is they will mirror you. So when you're during the love bombing, if you love cream in your coffee, they love cream in their coffee. If you smoke cigarettes, they smoke cigarettes. If you love donkeys, they love donkeys. And in the beginning, it's really it can be very flattering, because you're like, wow, it makes you feel like very understood, and like you've met your soulmate. There's so much like you guys have so much in common, and it can be quite flattering. The problem with it is that they're not being their true selves. They're being a chameleon. So they're sending, their representative to the relationship, and they are, copying you. So usually the reason they're doing that is because they're trying to create a bond, and really the literature talks about it being it's a trauma bond. But they're, making you feel like, you're like, you've met your soulmate. They talk about it in the literature that it's like the soulmate effect. And again, it's very bonding, and it creates a real connection to these individuals, right? But the problem is, again, it's not who they really are. So, and some of the theorists, sort of theorize that they don't know who they really are. They're empty shells of people. So it's not that they're doing this necessarily in a really deliberate, conscious fashion. They literally don't know who they are. They're empty. They're empty inside. So they have to sort of parasitically copy people that have a strong, oftentimes they'll find somebody that has a strong personality. So that if you're noticing in a relationship that the person you're with is mimicking you or mirroring you, they do not seem to have their own interests or their own hobbies or their own opinions. It's normal in relationships, like you might be a liberal Democrat, and somebody else might be a Republican, and you may have a difference of opinion on that. You might be a spiritual person or a religious person, and they're not. And you in normal relationships, you're going to have, of course, you're always going to have things that you disagree on, that you're not on the same page. That is totally normal in relationships, and being able to be your true self and state your true opinion, and feel confident in that, and then hopefully find somebody else who's also able to be their true selves, and not just sort of people pleasing or chameleon behaviors where they feel like they need to be morph into whatever it is that you're looking for. But you will find this, we all have a tendency to do that in the beginning of relationships, to sort of people please. But with one of these psychological manipulators or somebody with a personality disorder, this is extreme. And it's so extreme that you can literally feel like, oh, I've met the love of my life. They're my soulmate, because they're just like me. They just love everything I love, and I've never felt so understood, and I've never felt so accepted. And here I found somebody who just is so much like me. Be careful if you're newly in a relationship, if you're getting that feeling, and especially if something tells you it's a bit off. I had that intensely, and something told me that it wasn't quite, that it was off. I think at the time I thought, oh, well, maybe this person is sort of codependent. Well, because codependents tend to be like that, where they're such people pleasers, where they're trying to, copy or mimic or try to be like somebody else to make somebody else comfortable. But this was different. It was like literally like everything I liked, they liked, and there was no disagreement, and But the thing I did notice as well is that this person didn't really seem to have strong opinions of their own about what they liked or what they didn't like, or what things in their past, they didn't really talk about their past much. That's another sign, actually, somebody who doesn't really talk about their past much, or if they do, it's all just everything was fine, everything's good, there was nothing bad that's ever happened to them. Be careful and mindful if somebody's like that, where like they're just, everything was just perfect, their life was just perfect. That's another red flag, because I'm sorry, but if you are an adult and there's no way that your life was perfect, there was things in your life that were a problem, there always is, and being aware of those things and being able to forensically look at your past and recognize the things that were dysfunctional in your family, and to be able to do some work around that and accept that reality. And that's the process of becoming self-aware. And it's really important that we know why we do what we do. And a lot of what we do, especially like in relationships, is directly related to the relationships that we had with our parents and our family of origin, and our attachment styles, and where those came from, and why we are what, why we do what we do. So if somebody has this unexamined life where they're not curious or sort of analytical about why they do what they do, how they form or operate in relationships, and they haven't even thought about any of that stuff, I mean, that's another red flag to be aware of somebody who just isn't, they haven't done any self-reflection. They don't know why they do what they do. They're just living on this toxic autopilot, where they're just going about life in this destructive fashion, really, because they don't know why they're constantly cheating on their partner. They don't know why they have an addiction. They haven't looked at any of that. They're just in la la land. So I don't know, for me, in my future expectations of relationships, I'm going to require, I'm not going to ask somebody to change, but I'm not going to be with people who need to be a chameleon, who can't send them their true selves, who just mirror me. I'm a very strong personality, so it's going to take somebody strong who's okay being themselves regardless of my strong personality. That's going to take some strength and courage. It's going to take somebody that's really cool and strong, and that's awesome, because they're out there. I know they are. And then also, I want somebody who has their own opinions, their own interests, their own friends, their own desires, their own goals. Another thing that you might notice if you're in a relationship with like a parasitic narcissist, and I think some of the other cluster Bs, is these people have a hard time planning for any future. They're not goal setters, they're not planners, they can't commit to any kind of future goals or ideas, because they're they just live in the moment, but not in a good way. They live in the moment of like, whatever's going to bring me pleasure in the moment, and I can't think about a future. They can't commit to any human being, because they know that their duplicitous ways at some point are going to be found out, most likely, and then they'll have to exit the relationship, because the worst thing you can do with a narcissist or a psychopath or a sociopath is hold up a mirror to them. The worst thing you can do is critique them in any way or suggest that there is an imperfection there. They can't handle it, and they cannot handle the truth. They are totally terrified of the truth. So if you're speaking truth to the lie, then they just can't. They're gonna fold. They're gonna exit. They cannot handle the truth. It's probably one of their deepest fears, because that would mean facing the reality of who they are, and that's terrifying, because who they are is pretty bad characters. They are inside. Doesn't mean that they couldn't change. I believe that anyone can change. I believe redemption is possible. I believe that if Hitler had humbled himself to God and got some humility, he could have changed. I think we're all capable of changing if we face ourselves. But I do understand that for some people it's a lot harder than others, because their defense structure is very it's very intact and very well developed, and whatever happened to them as children and the trauma, or sometimes it was just objectification based on them being perfect. They were only accepted in their families if they were perfect, so they have to wear this mask of perfection. So these are all, reasons why it can be very difficult for the personality disorder structure, for somebody with that structure to get help, because again, they don't think there's anything wrong, right? So hopefully this is helpful, but if you're noticing somebody mirroring you or mimicking you or acting like a chameleon, that is a red, crimson, bright crimson flag. Look for it. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.